And I remember I was talking to her and I go, this is more than I had wanted. If it never changes or if it goes the other way, like I want to just like take this moment and go, this is nuts. And I remember talking to some of my people that night and them going, hey man, this is just the beginning. Like you did that theater show and then, now you're going to book like 10 other ones because you sold that. And I remember telling them like, I'm going to hang up. Thank you. You guys do all that shit where we say we're going some other place and we're going to go bigger and better. And I'm going to hang up and be like, this is the only place I need to be.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy. With yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Oh, welcome. What a way to start off the first podcast of the year. I'm blown away by Jamie's many philosophies. That is about actually being in the moment and how changing our mindset to help us see the good and positives can help us thrive in more ways than we can possibly imagine. It is simply captivating. Plus, Jamie has a great energy about him, is a great conversationalist, and he held the space with love, humor, and positivity. Anyway, what a start to 2024. I love this chat, and I think you will too, so let's get into it. Jamie Lissow is a comedian, writer, actor, and producer. He is currently a regular weekly guest on the #1 rated late-night talk show, Gutfeld. Jamie's also best known for his starring role in 2 seasons of the Netflix original series, Real Rob, alongside SNL alumni Rob Schneider, Adam Sandler, Norm MacDonald, and David Spade, a show which Jamie co-wrote and co-produced. Jamie's also appeared on The Tonight Show, The Late Late Show, The Last Comic Standing, has his own half-hour Comedy Central special, and a dry bar comedy special with over 20 million views. Jamie recently wrapped his first movie, Daddy-Daughter Trip, where he appears alongside John Cleese, Rob Schneider, and Michael Bublé, a movie he co-wrote and produced. Jamie's currently writing and will be starring in the feature film The Animal 2, and also headlines stand-up comedy shows across the US. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about living in his car, being at the right place at the right time, his unique mindset and philosophy on life, our individual unique paths, vulnerability and authenticity, getting sober, plus plenty more. Before we get into this chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the video to follow the following day. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's epic episode. Maybe we can start here. I don't know about you, but I am shocked that you don't have a Wikipedia page. Is this something you're aware of, and does it annoy you as much as it annoys me?
I am not aware of it. I think at one time I may have had a Wikipedia page that was wildly incorrect. And I remember somebody telling me like on my team, wow, I'm so annoyed that I just said I have a team. I don't know what to say. I don't like saying my manager. I hate words like that.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a weird Wikipedia page that said stuff about an ex-wife and about like it said I had more children than I have. And I think somebody complained and maybe it never got re-upped.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We've heard it all before. We've had people that, have had multiple kids, which like you gave the example. One of my friends, I think they said he's worth $11 million. He does not have $11 million. Does that annoy you in this industry, or you find it funny?
Let me tell you something. I find it funny, but I'll tell you absolutely true story. Artificial intelligence writes these articles about you and they send them to me. Like they'll write an article and it'll be like that. It'll be like, it's clear a computer wrote it, and it'll say like, Jamie Lissow comedian is worth $10 million US a lot. Like you can tell it's fake, right?
Yep.
And I have an ex-wife And I do feel like some people think I have way more money than I have. Like, for instance, I've been in a Netflix television show, but people don't understand that, like, we self-financed it. People don't understand the industry. And I was married for a long time to a woman who was there when a lot of this would happen. Like, she would see some of these articles and she knew how much money I made and she knew everything. And after we got divorced, it wasn't like the most pleasant divorce. And not long ago, maybe 2 years ago, she sent me an article and she said, maybe we have to renegotiate our child support because it says you're worth $8 million dollars or
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
And I took the article and I circled another part of it. And I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure none of this is correct. And it also said below that, it said I was happily married to her. And I go, seems like they're getting stuff wrong.
Uh,
None of this is probably correct. It's
uh,
100% true story.
that is brilliant. So your child support is still the same?
It's still the same. It's still the
Isn't
same.
isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? Because we've had a lot of I hate the word celebrity death hoaxes as well, where a lot
Yeah.
of people will find out articles about them and apparently they're dead and people will message them. It's so
Yeah.
funny what people put out there. The AI stuff is new to me, but it just blows my mind. And I'm sure you've probably seen it with friends and stuff. And it drives me nuts personally because it makes it even harder to look for stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm worried about there are a few different ways to find out that you're dead when you're a comedian. And there are certain ways that I do not want to find out. I remember when back in the day, I did cruise ships for a while.
Yep.
And every once in a while you get a mass email from Carnival Cruise Ship telling you someone was dead. And I was like, I don't want that to be how my friends find out. I want to be a little more high level than that. And then I'm really worried about when I'm working somewhere, I really want to die on the way to a very reputable comedy club. Like I hope it's an improv. The best thing would be like on the way to a theater. They go, oh, he was doing this sold out theater. There's this club I love in Sunnyvale, California, and it's called Rooster T. Feathers. And whenever I travel there, I'm so nervous I'm going to die on the way to Rooster T. Feathers. And then they're going to put it in the news and be like, oh, this comedian died on the way to, and my friends are going to be like, oh my God, I thought that guy was worth $8 million.
You know, you just need to be invited to the Oscars
Yeah.
and then, life's set, you've done it all.
Yeah. If I get invited to the Oscars, I will drive there in a car with bald tires with a blindfold on.
I was just thinking about, because, you mentioned cruise ships, which is very, I've had a lot of friends that have done that in the comedy scene. And, looking back at a bit of your story, I was very surprised to hear that you lived in a car, like on and off for 5 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, but to tell you the truth, it was back in the day when I started comedy clubs, they did shows every night.
Yeah.
And so like I would go to the Buffalo Funny Bone and you would work Tuesday through Sunday. Like there was only one night off. And so I guess by living in my car, I more meant I didn't live anywhere, but like I lived in comedy condos. But my car was there a microwave in the trunk? Yes, there was. Was there a sleeping bag? Absolutely. And every once in a while, did I have to sleep in it for the night on a big trip? Yeah, I definitely did. And it wasn't like I wasn't renting hotels and things like that because it
Yeah.
was the very beginning of comedy. So it wasn't that bad. It was mostly hotels. It was mostly living on the road, I would say.
I've got two reasons I bring it up, because imagine like comedian Jamie was found dead in his car. That's not as glamorous as dying in
I love
on the
that.
way to the Oscars.
Yeah, I gotta be careful about that.
But it's still people have heard your resume at the start. I still think it's really fascinating. When you're starting out comedy and it's not as glamorous as we've heard every single comedian, actor, everyone in the creative fields, to still kind of like have a lifestyle like that and pursue it for like 5 years. I think you have to be like pretty resilient or have a lot of passion to be able to do the craft. What were you kind of thinking at the moment, at that that time in your life? Did you think? I can see you thinking. I'll let you continue.
I'm thinking, I'll be honest with you, at that time, I think part of me, not to get all serious, but I think part of me was trying to
No, please do.
escape like this life I had in like an upbringing. I think I wanted to like leave everything behind me. And it was for sure, I did not know that you could actually be a comedian. So like I wanted to do it for so long that I didn't know it was a real job. So like even when I was little, I've said this before to people, but like friends of mine were like, I'm going to be a ninja. And I was like, I'm going to be a comedian. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, no one's a ninja. But then you meet a comedian, and I thought it was like that crazy of a job. I thought it was like saying you wanted to be a princess or something. And then one day when I found out you could do it, I kind of couldn't believe, like I wasn't sure what to do. And I went to law school, and then I dropped out of law school, like almost like the moment I made my first $20 in comedy, because I was like,
Cool.
this is crazy that this is real. And so at that moment, I don't think I had any thoughts for the future. I don't think I thought I was that great. I never thought I was going to be famous. I was thinking, this is amazing that I could pay my bills at this moment with this job, and probably I'll have to go eventually do something different, but like how long can I get away with this? And then I remember for like 5 years just making enough money just to survive. And then I remember like on the fifth year, only 5 years, or maybe 6 years, I remember I did this thing called the Montreal Comedy Festival. Have you heard of that thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, I don't know what it is. I'm like not in the industry. I don't know it's a big deal. I don't know what it is. I don't even get invited to the auditions. I just happen to be, because I don't have a home. I'm living in my car basically. I happened to be there on a Monday night. They were doing auditions. I was working like the next week. I just happened to be there. And there was auditions. I wasn't on the auditions. I just happened to be there. And the owner of the club was like, I should get you on this showcase. I'm like, okay. So he like gets me on. I'm not even one of the people they
That's
invited.
so cool.
And I end up getting Montreal, and I did the Tonight Show like a month later
Oh, because of that.
because of that. And
Wow.
and that was the moment I thought, oh, wait a minute, like wow, like holy shit, maybe this could be a job. But it was all very like backing into it, like not planning for it.
It's kind of the exact opposite of what your life would have been as a lawyer as well, where you would have had to plan and get through.
Yeah.
I heard that when you made that decision, you spoke to your dad, and he was actually quite supportive, which is very rare. You don't hear too many stories.
Story. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
true story. And that was like this was I had just been paid, I think $20 and maybe like half price bowling I had just made. Not even kidding. And that was the kind of money I was making. So it wasn't like I was going, yeah, I'm on TV. This was like the very beginning. Yeah. And I came home from law school and just said like, I got this piece of paper that said I would eventually owe like $300,000. And I remember just thinking, wow, if you got to pay that back, you got to be a lawyer, right? You can't just like go to lawyer and then change your mind, like go to law school, change your mind. You have like, this is it. And
Yeah.
yeah, he was like super supportive, and we went to my school and moved all my stuff out, and that was it.
That is pretty cool because it is such a huge commitment. I did accounting, so I know how expensive it can be. And now I'm doing all of this in podcast writing and stuff. And you actually did like law, I believe. I think you had a friend that you helped get him into like, I forgot what it's called to get into law. So you were studying
Yeah.
with him and you actually were pretty good at it. So you could have actually have done it, which is pretty
I think
remarkable as
so.
well.
I think so. Sometimes I talked to that guy today, the
Oh,
guy that
nice.
yeah, I basically we used to drink a lot. And one day he said, I can't drink. I'm studying for the law school admissions test. And I was like, oh, I'll hang out and help you study. And then when he took the test, I just took it too, because I had studied, and I got the same score as him. And
Nice.
yeah, I feel like I could have done it, but man, I get very stressed very easily, and I worry a lot.
Oh, really?
And in the law, that is not a great attribute. Like he has
Yeah.
so many things hanging in the balance at all times. Like if he forgets to file a thing at a certain time, this person that was attacked can never file. Like it's so many moving parts. Every time I talk to him and he just finishes a trial, or I wonder if I really could have done it or not. I would have had to be like I would have had to make wills or something. I don't know if I could have been like a trial guy. I would have been like guy in office.
Yeah, I've seen all different types of law and it's definitely not for me, but it's still, I really like your attitude and we'll get into it. It kind of sounded like, you found comedy, you fell in love with it. You weren't thinking too much forward ahead. You were just trying to work on your craft. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You had this
Yeah.
kind of like go with the flow attitude. Did you have that with other things in life, or was it because you found comedy and it just felt right for you?
I feel like when I'm at my best, I am very, very good. You know how we all have like if you go, what's your morning routine? I'm like, well, when I'm doing it, it's the following. So like I have moments when I'm really in it, but I feel like that's one of my it's funny you should say flow. Like my girlfriend, who I love very much, who I text way too much, she like always calls me and says I'm like her water, sort of like a Bruce Lee reference of like that water can be ice or it can be where I do kind of go with the flow. And I've just seen too many times where I can still get thrown out of balance or like depressed or like overreact. But I think like as years go by, my only goal is to like minimize the amount of time I let myself react to the thing. Because as I look
Ooh.
back, so many things that we think are the worst possible news, aside from people dying and shit, but like career stuff, you're just not right. You just don't know. You're not good at predicting. Like I was talking to I don't want to quote him because I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember talking to Craig Robinson, who was in like The Office and who was in, and he was talking about like he was surprised that at what filled the comedy clubs. Like he remembers like being on The Office, like like I remember thinking when I did my I'm trying to make sure I'm not going too far away from your question, but I
No,
remember
no, no.
when like I was on a cruise ship and Rob Schneider called me and said we should write this TV show or whatever, and I immediately quit cruise ships. But quitting cruise ships was a huge deal because it's all I had. So that was, and they pay really well.
Yeah, I've heard.
And when you leave them, sometimes you can't just come back whenever you want. At the time, it was really hard. So I remember just like just having so much stress over that decision, which sounds so silly to stop
Not
doing
really.
cruise ships to a TV
No,
show.
yeah.
And you understand, I think you understand because
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
maybe, but there was no money in the TV show. It was all on spec. It was all we wanted to see if we could do it. But I remember I had done this show called Red Eye, which is a show hosted by this guy, Greg Gutfeld, and I had done it like I did 50 appearances. It was on at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was amazing because it got me used to like being on TV in front of cameras. But nobody ever came to a show and said, "Oh, I saw you on that Red Eye show." It was just this thing I did in between, like working on this Netflix show. And as we worked on the Netflix show, it got released on Netflix. I remember thinking, even like talking to my mom and going like, "Wow, like I worked so hard and I think this is it. Like I think this will be when I'm in demand by clubs and I'm going to headline everywhere." And it helped being on that show, but that didn't happen at all. So like I started headlining a lot more clubs, but not a lot of people were. I wasn't filling clubs because people saw my Netflix show. It'd be like 20 people or 40 people on a Saturday night, which doesn't matter to the club. That's not enough to matter to them. And I remember we got season 2 and it became a Netflix original and it was a huge deal. And Sandler was in it and Norm Macdonald was in it. And I remember
You're
thinking, oh,
talking
this
about the Rob Schneider
the
show.
the Rob Schneider show.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, oh, this is it. I was waiting for this, the Netflix original. And it comes out, and that didn't quite do it. There were fans, but it wasn't like, wow, you're in demand at this, club, whatever. So then like a year later, I'm working on I realized I'm kind of all over the place, but then I ended up like writing for this TV show, and I feel like I was almost giving up because I had like done all that stuff and it didn't really work the way I thought. And so I got this job writing on a TV show and I go, let me just do that. It's like health insurance. It pays a lot of money. It was called Man with a Plan with Matt LeBlanc. And it was like season 4 and I go, I'm going to be a writer. I didn't love it, but I go, this feels like the right thing to do. That stuff didn't work. Maybe it all led me to this. And then I woke up one day and that show got canceled. And I was like, I'm in trouble. Like I left stand up. I took a writing job. Now I have no contacts. I don't have an agent anymore because I got rid of my agent because I thought, oh, I'll just write forever. And I was like, I'm really in trouble, man. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I remember like even like a couple weeks before that, the guy that hosted Red Eye, Greg Gutfeld, that I had done 50 times, he had been messaging me and saying, I got a new TV show. You should come on. And I would go, dude, I'd love to, but I'm writing on this show. I would love to, but it's in New York. I live in Alaska. And then then when I had nothing to do, I had no job. I texted Greg and I go, oh, dude, I'd love to come do your show. And he's like, okay. And so I flew down there and I'm still like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I don't know what's going to happen. And I go on the show and I do my jokes just like I did on Red Eye 50 times. It was like doing the 51st appearance. And I remember like at the end of the show, he goes, what are you up to? And I go, oh, I'm opening for Rob Schneider at this club in New Jersey. That's all I said. I didn't say the name of the club. I didn't say the dates. I just said it was a Tuesday. I go, I'm opening for Rob Schneider. And that weekend, 60 people, I talked to all of them, paid $50 to see me open for Rob Schneider.
Wow.
They bought tickets to that show because I said it. And I remember thinking like, oh, wow, that's so crazy. Like, this is not how it's supposed to happen. And then fast forward, I did it last week and it was my 95th appearance
Oh,
on the new
congratulations.
show in like 2 years. And that's what after 28 years of stand-up comedy, that's why my shows were like sold out last weekend. And so I feel like my point is not to even say yay for me. Like it's more like you never know what the thing is going to be. You have no idea what the thing is going to be. And I feel like everything we do is all intertwined and might lead you to the thing. But dude, nobody knows. And every person I know has that story. They all have the same story. Like people go, how do you get into stand-up? And I go, I don't know what to tell you. Go on a cruise ship, wait for Rob Schneider to call you. I don't know what to tell you. Like it's the craziest story. There's no schematic to follow. There's no instruction manual.
I love it, and you haven't done justice to your story in the sense of the work that's come through, and I'll help you out there. But looking back at part of your career, I think it's important that you say, it's taken 28 years, and you've had a lot of success along the way. But people don't necessarily realize that it takes 28 years to do all of the stuff that you've done. And adding to what you said, there was a quote. You said you really don't know what's good news and bad news. So the example, Man with a Plan, you're a writer, and I think you're also a producer on it. That was a pretty successful show. It gets cancelled. You didn't think it was going to get cancelled. And then it leads to Gutfeld. Before that, Unreal Rob, which is a hilarious show. The assistant, you're a writer on the show, but the person that was playing your role, he pulled out last minute, which gave you an opportunity to audition for it and then get the role. And there's a few things that we've missed out along the way. But each thing from what I've heard you say is that you were devastated or upset by each thing not happening, but it led on to the next thing, which is now Gutfeld, which has also massively helped your career, which I find really awesome in the way that you talk about it and how you just don't know and how the universe kind of works for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that way it's hard because you don't believe it. Like, especially if you ever notice when something horrible happens to you and one of your friends says, dude, you're going to be okay. Like, you're good. You're going to be, and you're like, how do you know that? I don't believe you. Like, it's very hard to believe that, but it seems like sometimes other people can even see it better than us I know it seems like the most cliche, like there's some kind of path, but like something just happened to someone that I love very much. I would say it's very similar to like losing a crazy job or whatever. And I'm so sure that it's going to be great, but it's very hard to like, I'm not going to say to this person, I'm positive everything's going to be fine, but I'm positive it's going to be fine. And I think I do that I think I do it with everything. Like when I got divorced, I thought it was the end of the world. And I couldn't figure out, I have kids in Alaska and what happened to my family? And is that a failure? And then like, no shade on this woman who I'm going to see tomorrow. My ex-wife and I are going to take our kids to the Santa Claus house tomorrow. We get along very well. She has a husband and everything's fine. But it's funny how like even that little thing, thank God for that. Like that was good news too. It's just, you never know.
There's an example where, going through, and we don't need to get into it, you can go into details as much as you want, but going through a divorce is meant to be the most stressful thing. There's a few other factors, living in Alaska, there's not so much the comedy, the acting scene, all of the things that you do in New York, LA, and it's very far as well. And, going through that, a lot of, shame element, anger, all of the emotions, very natural. And then I believe, I'm misquoting you, but you said, what if this doesn't have to be the worst moment in my life? What if I can make it the best moment in my life? And it seems like since you've done that, at least from the career side, and obviously you're very happy with your girlfriend now as well, it seems like that shift's also been really powerful for you as well.
Yeah, I think it's almost too like the one of my favorite, it's sort of like a corollary to like a Marcus Aurelius, which is like the impediment to the way is the way, like the obstacle is the way. So like it's not even just an obstacle that you're going to get by, it's actually the way. Like it's actually the thing that seems like it's going to end your career might begin your career. And like my example for that is the things that were going against me are what you just said, like Alaska, living so far away, having to fly. Like at the beginning when I lived in Alaska, a comedy club would go, hey, we'll give you $2,000 to come to our club this weekend. And I would look up tickets and it would be $2,000 for the ticket. And I was like, how is this going to work? Like it would cost, I live so far away that my plane ticket cost as much as they're paying me. And so like, I was like, how am I going to do that? And then like getting divorced was hard and living in like a little place and then like having my kids far away and like all this stuff I wanted to complain about. And what's really funny is the reason I think people relate to me on Gutfeld, I have a segment on there that's called like tips from a divorced dad. And I was in who even knows where this weekend, and someone came up behind me and said, "Are you Jamie from Gutfeld?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "This is actually kind of funny," but they go, "Is your character like real on the show?" They go, "Are you really from Alaska? Are you really like broke? Do you really never get laid? Are you really divorced?" And I actually said to this guy, I go, "Hey man," I go, "Do you think if I made up a character, I would choose those attributes?" Of course, those are real.
You'd be
But I
tall,
think that like,
massive, and
yeah,
massive
wouldn't I be like
schlong.
a Thor? Yeah, like, if I
Yeah.
could choose. But like, I think that for some reason, I think the stuff that was tough for me when I go to shows and like the messages I get and sort of like the connection I feel with the crowd, it's my DMs are filled with people going through divorces and asking me if things are going to be okay. And there's some older women trying to sleep with me. I'm not going to lie to you. And but I think it's like that vulnerability and like how honest I am and how I let all those guys I let them all take shots at me because I know it's out of love, but it's all true. Like it's all true. I lost all my money, but like, I'm not sure if that AI article reflects that divorce anymore. If you
We'll
read it,
update it.
but I think it was being like super honest and vulnerable and not being afraid to be embarrassed and say, "Yeah, I lost all my money." That made me. I sort of feel like that's why everybody comes to the shows
Yeah,
because like
definitely.
I'm not just like guy telling jokes. I'm like this guy that has a story. So in some ways, all that bad shit created like this my whole act and like the reason people come see me.
I really like this philosophy, and also just from a stand-up side, you know better than anyone when someone is completely making up a story. Yes,
Yeah.
not all the stand-ups are going to be 100% accurate, but when you
Right.
feel the vulnerability, the authenticity, that's the difference, in my opinion, from like a good comedian to a great comedian. And then people feel with you, whether you're divorced or not, you can see this person's being real. And to me,
Yeah.
that's what I love. It can just be like one-liners that don't have to do with like anything, but authenticity and vulnerability to me is
Mhm.
crucial. And I also feel like by embracing that, it's also helped your career as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a sucker for like, if I'm watching two people fight in like an MMA match or a boxing match, if I just see them fight, I don't care who wins. But
Yeah.
if when the guys walk into the ring, they go, "This guy's got a baby and he lived on the street and he fought his way out." And this other guy, he went through the. I'm like, okay, I found the guy I want to root for. I want that guy to win. But without a backstory, I don't care who punches who. But I'm
Yep.
thinking like, oh my God, this guy wins. He's gonna pull his daughter out of Rio de Janeiro and move to the state. Like, I need a backstory. And I feel like some of those tough things give you the backstory you need that you would need for a character in any script for anyone to give a shit about, or that you would need in stand up for anyone to like really connect with what you're saying.
I agree. And the writer in me is very impressed because you need those backstories because you can have a very funny character, which I think I've done like plenty of, but people are like, why do I care? And
Right.
one of the feedback I got ages ago was your character's funny and that's all I cared about. But why do I care what's happening? Tell me more. Like jokes doesn't get you to the end of a season. You need to like
Right.
feel something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I just think it's hilarious, like kind of the backstories. And yes, it's hilarious, but you're kind of like rooting for some of the characters and you hate the characters. They don't need to be likable, but at least there's like something there. Do you know what I'm saying? You need that.
Absolutely.
And I feel
Yeah.
like because you've done a lot of writing, I'm sure you did a lot of writing earlier on, but now you've got some really big writing credits, and I feel like that would have helped as well. Putting it in.
Yeah. Look at the my favorite TV show of all time was The British Office with Ricky Gervais. That show is a love story
Mm.
between Jim and Pam. That show's not jokes. It's a love story about two, like that's the whole thing. And then there's like sort of jokes around it. And then it's a story about this sad guy that wants love and he doesn't know how to fill this hole of like, he needs he's getting like the wrong kind of, validation from everybody. And it's also hilarious, but without the love story, I don't know if you care as much, or if you watch till the end, or if that show is a masterpiece, I think, because
Interesting.
cared so much about that little love story within like one of the funny shows I think that's ever been made.
I actually haven't watched it from start to finish, so I'm going to watch it now. If that's your big recommendation. But I want to go back to this like vulnerability and authenticity side. Is it something that you just figured out, or was it a very conscious choice, or you're going through stuff and you just wanted to, kind of get it out there?
I don't think I've ever made a conscious choice in my whole life, but I think I
Your
kind of
whole life.
stumbled into everything. Yeah, because I remember going through a time when you want to be like you want people to think you're cool, or you want people to think you're smart. And I remember being on, like, it really, really started for me, definitely on stage too, but on Gutfeld, I remember going in thinking, this is a political show with some of the smartest people in the world. And like the host of the show, I think he's like a borderline genius. Like, he's very funny, but he also has like these crazy original takes. And I remember having dinner with him and saying, I don't know why am I on the show? Like, you guys are so smart. And I remember him saying, like, dude, you bring like this whole other angle and like, you're really funny, whatever. And so I remember when I went on that show, I decided to never pretend like I didn't know. Never pretend like I knew something I didn't know. And I remember like one of the first times I was on, I said a joke, like I would do jokes like I would say, and I would also never pretend a joke did well if it didn't. And I remember my first appearance, I said something like, Greg asked me a question, and I go, listen, Greg, I have 1 point and I have one joke. And if nobody laughs, I have 2 points. And like, just being brutally honest about if a joke doesn't work, or just like where you're coming from. I guess I kind of stumbled into it. And then what's funny is I met this girl who's been like the greatest, like sort of like supports. I've never had like a support system in comedy. Like when I was married, it's hard enough doing comedy by yourself. Like, I feel bad when I run into someone that's like, oh, my wife doesn't really want me to do it, and like they think it's bad. I'm like, how do you do that? Because I wake up every morning telling myself not to do it, let alone if there's someone else telling me. Like, it's hard enough to keep yourself on that track and positive. I can't imagine. But I mean, I lived it for a long time, but that was something I really thought about, was like, I remember when I met her, and I think she's really attractive. I think she's out of my league, I would say. And I remember worrying, like, oh my goodness, like, what are people going to say because I'm this loser? Like, my character is that of a divorced loser. What do I do? Like, she was like, can I post a picture of you online? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Because I feel like they like this guy. And then we had this big discussion about it and came to the conclusion of, I got to keep with the honesty, and I got to find new places and I want people to, I would have friends of mine. There's a guy named Brian Kilmeade. He hosts a show on Fox. And I think this happened to me a number of times where someone, like, I see him at Fox and they pull me over and go, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah. And they go, are you okay? Like, are you, like, what are you talking about? Because my character is such like, people worried about me.
Yeah.
And so I finally, for the first time, was like, I guess my point being, I feel like I learned that, like, if you're Rodney Dangerfield and you get no respect, and that's what we love about him, I think it would have been okay if at some point he garnered a lot of respect and became a guy that used to get no respect. I think it's okay to.
Agreed.
And maybe you will have people think you're not as funny, but isn't your own truth and happiness like almost more important than like some silly character, you know?
I 100% agree. And a few examples spring to mind. I used to be like a punching bag within my friends, and that I still am, but it was more out of maybe a lack of respect. And now being like, when you change and grow and evolve, which is what you're talking about, we all change. We can't do the same thing for 50 years. It's not going to work. We grow. Right. We might not always go like upwards. It could be sideways, but we're always growing. And it's important to honor that. And one of my friends, he's very popular in the YouTube and TikTok space. And his whole thing was kind of being like a single guy, amongst other things. I'm misquoting him. He does great work, so I don't want people to think that we've consciously spoken about this. But I believe because he was known as like that single guy and he could be your best friend, that was kind of the persona. But then he got a girlfriend. And it was I'm sure you have to have conversations about like, do I let this world know I have a girlfriend? Is it going to take away from my content? And he realized, very similar to you, that, authenticity, honesty is actually, as lame as it sounds, is actually a remedy for success and happiness, because you can't always be that person. You do grow. And I thought it was very unique to hear it, because sometimes when we have success in one way, we think we have to hold on to it and clutch. But sometimes, as you've alluded to, we can actually get far more success or more abundance if we kind of embrace the truth within ourselves. That's my take.
Totally agree. And if you think about it, it's almost like that is your friend's story arc for his character in the movie of his life or the show of his life. Like, and this is my arc where why can't you be single and then have a relationship? And that was the beginning and that's the end. And you're not being contradictory. You're like, that's just the journey of your character. And maybe people want to root for you. And maybe single guy gets it, like maybe you find maybe he find if you're on TikTok and you're single guy, maybe at some point you go, I'm out. I've done everything you can possibly do about a single guy. And then you go, wow, now have a girlfriend or I'm married. This is a whole new world and a whole new audience. And that's almost what I felt. I used to kind of like use it as a crutch. And whatever the topic was, I would go, how can I say I'm a loser and I never get laid based on this topic? And now I just do different stuff, and it's like it almost gives you like more, it's a little more range,
Isn't that really exciting? Because I'm sure at the start there would have been massive resistance. A lot of fears would come up in your mind. This is what I've done, as I've said. This is how I've been successful. I don't want to lose it. You need to earn money. Am I going to lose it all? In this industry, a lot of people talk about like losing it and not necessarily the abundant mindset you're talking about now. But to actually get to that stage of embracing it, I feel like that's a massive journey in itself. Was it the same with you?
Yeah, I think so. I'm very much, you're speaking right to me on that. Like, I very much try to, even with like what's going on where I feel like things are definitely getting like a little overwhelming in a good way, like where things have never been like this for me. I do feel like, I think an important thing is to have, like, I love having like a manager, because I think what's cool about having, or like an agent or whatever, I think what's cool about having like people that support you around you that want more for you. You can be this guy that says, I wake up every day and think, and this is before things were going even good. This is even when I was living in my car. I feel like I wake up every day and I could tell you honestly, like there's nothing I want for Christmas, and there's nothing that if I won the lottery, I would purchase the next day. I don't need anything. And like even the day before I met my girlfriend, I laughed because I looked at my journal that day and I was like, I lack nothing. I'm fine being single. Everything's great. Like, and that's why I met her, I think, was because I didn't need her. I wasn't and that's like
energy exchange.
That's your whole abundance thing, is that like you don't feel like you're missing anything. But I think that's what is kind of cool about having a team or having representatives, because it's almost like because some people, the counter argument to the abundance theory and like feeling like you have everything you need, some people go like, well, what if you don't try to achieve that, or then you're not going to want that? I don't really buy into any of that stuff. And I feel like it's fun I just did my first theater show 2 weeks ago, first one ever. And It was in Boise, Idaho, is where my girlfriend's from, coincidentally. And I had opened for Rob Schneider there 2 years prior, and I had my first theater show. I sold it out, every seat. And then the next night I had it was like my first weekend of sellouts, right? Like sold out Spokane. And I remember I was talking to her and I go, this is more than I had ever had wanted. If it never changes or if it goes the other way, like I want to just like take this moment and go, this is nuts. And I remember talking to some of my people that night and them going, hey man, this is just the beginning. Like you did that theater show and then, now you're going to book like 10 other ones because you sold that out. And I remember telling them like, I'm gonna hang up. Thank you. You guys do all that shit where we say we're going some other place and we're gonna go bigger and better. And I'm gonna hang up and be like, this is the only place I need to be. You guys please do that behind the scenes. Like get after it. But
I don't love that.
But I don't want it to go like, oh, why am I not in an arena? This sucks. Like I don't want to be the guy that thinks about it. I want someone else to.
Yep. Just similar to me. Isn't that? I think that's really awesome. That shows that I throw the journey word. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I hate it. But that is a really cool, arc of your story in that, this is kind of industry. You talked about Montreal, but a lot of stand-up comedians, for example, at least in Australia, they've done something. They're like, but I haven't done that talk show. I haven't done this. As an actor, you're constantly thinking onto the next thing. And it's very natural and normal. And it can be, from what I've seen, it seems to be an industry because there's no like ladder in the sense where you can be so worried about the future and projecting in the future and not actually enjoy what you're doing in the moment. Because for acting roles, for example, that's very hard to get. And I know when you first started, you were rejected like everyone else, heaps of times before you were getting roles. And now, like, you know, getting a role and just being able to enjoy it, I think that's like kind of mastery, especially in this field. It's because it's like not talked about. It's always about what's next, what's ahead of me. And to say, no, I'm enjoying this moment. You guys do what you got to, but I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing now. Tell me more about that mindset. I love it.
Yeah, I was actually rejected over 100 times auditioning to get a girlfriend. I'm just kidding.
I know the feeling. Only 100? You're elite.
You're speaking my language, man. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's certainly not easy. I think it's definitely like, it's hard to look at it's the whole like, comparing yourself to, sorry, my girlfriend was texting me this really sweet message.
Oh, that's your share? No, you don't have to.
She's like, it says, she just says, I love you. We text, I love you a lot. We're very,
I hope I'm invited to the wedding. I'll be devastated if I'm not.
You'll be invited to the wedding.
Thank you. You heard it. Everyone here heard it. That's a contract.
Yeah. But I guess you're asking, like, you mean about like the abundant mindset, or just like about
just being like being in the moment, you know, just you're always worried about what's kind of next in this industry. I haven't hit the success that you have, and it's not a comparison, but even like with my TV show, when I got offered that contract I was telling you about off air, I was projecting I'm going to have 5. This is my big break. I'm going to be on Netflix for 5 seasons. And obviously none of that happened, which I'm very grateful for. And it's always about what's next. And the people, not necessarily my lawyer, but the other people I was dealing with, they're like, you're going to get this. You're going to be the showrunner. You're going to be that. I'm like, and I realized afterwards with a bit of reflection, even though it didn't work out, why couldn't we just talk about what was happening there in the moment? Why did it have to be about 10 other things and what it would lead to? And it's very easy to kind of be distracted by all of that noise. But it seems like you've done a lot of work in that regard, because with stand-up, it's huge to say, you know what, I'm going to enjoy where I am at this moment. You guys work for me in wonderful ways, but I love what I'm doing now and I want to be present. It sounds like a very conscious choice.
Yeah. And it's hard to believe, because I sometimes don't believe it myself. It's hard to believe, but if you at any point in your career think to yourself, like, let's pretend everyone has shelter and a roof over their head and they can take care of their basic needs. Let's say like that happiness study where like, oh, after $80,000, you don't get any happier. Let's assume everyone has clothes and they can take care of their kids and they have medicine or whatever. If at any point in your career you're going, my God, I'm not going to be happy until I even if it's like until I headline that club, it will never end. And I know this because I've seen it in myself, but I have friends of mine. I have a friend who signed a multi-million-dollar development deal at a network. And he's kind of always been a guy that he's always been like, man, when I get that thing, I think it'll be better and I'll do whatever. He has a multi-million-dollar deal, and he says the same stuff he said to me before. He like finds new different ways to not be at the top of this thing. Like, you have to at this moment decide this is it, or it will never end. Like $1 million.
It's so sorry for cutting off. Like, if you're not happy now, why are you going to be happy later?
You have to get to the root of why your happiness relies on looking for something external, or it will never happen. And I mean, I've seen a guy that came from nothing tell me he wanted to have $1 million in the bank and it was going to change his life. $1 million in the bank's a lot of money. And I had a conversation with him today and he was telling me, yeah, man, I just need like 5 million. And I know that when it's 5, it's going to be 10. And if he doesn't stop and go, like, we're totally good at this moment, it's never going to work for him. And it is a full-time job, man. The world is set up for us to compare ourselves to other people and to want, so it is a full-time job. I journal multiple times a day, like not just once a day. I have my phone and I have this, I would love to share this. I made this up. I'm curious if someone else has ever done this before, but I have a journaling goal technique that I'm like very excited about that I made up myself. And what it is, I noticed that say you have like top 10 goals and it's for your whole life. It's like, say I want to write that TV show. I want to I don't know if you're married or have a girlfriend, but you go like, I want to have this great life with that person. I want my kid to go to this. So you have like 10 things, right? I was looking at my list one day and I noticed that one of the things said, I want to, I want to star in this movie with this person. I got real specific. I want to do this. And then another one said I want to start, selling out more theaters and doing like one night in cities instead of spending the weekend. And then the next one was like, I want to be able to take my kid to every basketball game that he has in high school. And I realized that if I got the movie, I couldn't take him to the basketball game. And I was like, holy shit, these goals like work against each other. So it doesn't make sense. Like, I even felt like in my mind, it didn't make sense because I go, how can I achieve these goals? None of them
Work together.
like none of them work with each other. And so I have a new thing where I always have 5 to 10 goals, but in order to be on the list, it has to work with all the other goals. And so like,
That's genius.
so my list right now, it says my whole life is about spending more time with my kids and more time with my girlfriend. And so it'll say like, I would like to do 80 theaters a year that are sold out in the best markets. That's my goal. It's not 100. It's not 200. Because once it's 200, the rest of the list, I can't achieve the other things, which are I want to be there for all their birthdays. I want to be there for every finals game. I want to be there for my girlfriend, this and that. Like 80 is the number. I had to figure it out. I had to like look at a calendar and go, how many days could I do? And then I go, I want Gutfeld to ask me to be on like this many times. That number can't be that high either because they all have to work in tandem and be complementary. And dude, I love, like for some reason, the minute I figured that out, and I know it goes against like, oh, you should have like crazy goals. Like I want to be, but mine all make sense to where I could check them all off.
I think that's the most logical way of, people talk about manifesting, which a lot of people can contradict themselves, as you alluded to. But I think that's a genius way because I say I want this, 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 and this. And then I've never, I think a lot of people that do goal setting are going to be like, I'm an idiot. How can I have that? And it'll probably like goal 1 and
Right.
goal 3 will contradict each other. And
Right.
I think that's, really simplifying a strong process for you mentally to get things done. I can't believe I've only heard about that now. So, you're curious about people. You've already kind of blown my mind just because I'm an idiot and you simplified it as well.
I really love thinking about it that way. And also, I think I used to care so much about like what other comedians thought of me and like all these different things. And the minute I embraced that, like, okay, I have this audience my audience from Gutfeld is like a little bit older. Some of them have never been to a comedy club before. I was noticing that like I would go to Las Vegas and all my 8:00 shows were sold out and my 10:30 shows were empty. And that's not a great week in Vegas if you think you're doing good and then half your shows are empty. And so with the help of like some smart people, we've started to design this life where like I'm going to Austin next month and there's someone's headlining there for the weekend, some great comedians headlining, right? He's doing all the shows. Friday 8 and 10:30, Saturday 8 and 10:30. We called them up and said, I go, can I also come that weekend? And they're like, what do you mean? We already got a headliner. And I go, I would like to do a 4 p.m. show on Saturday and a 4 p.m. show on Sunday because my people are kind of older and they don't want to come out that late. And so I've been doing this new thing where it's almost like that TikTok person that comes in and does like their one show. I do that and I feel a little bit out of the loop. Like, yeah, my name's not on the big board where the guy doing the weekend is, but I come in, I do my shows. They sell out because that's not that many tickets, right? Like I'm not doing like 14 shows in Vegas. I'll do like 3. And so we're trying to build it where, no kidding, like it's so more people can come to my shows if they're like at 6 or 7. And I want to go to sleep. I don't want to stay up till midnight. We all want to go to bed. And so I'm like, I don't want to do that stand-up comedian thing anymore where you stay up till midnight and then try to like wake up and get shit done. I don't want to do it anymore. And so we were just like, what if we just did this? I did Vegas the other day, that same club I used to do 8 and 10:30, and I did a 5:00 show every night before the other guys. I just did 3 instead of 14. It's wonderful. I brought my girlfriend. I'd be like, I'll be right back. I'd leave the room at 7, get back at 8, and she would go, "You're done working for the day?" I go, "Yeah." Just because like I think there's a way to
Quality
like
over
ultimate
quantity.
think outside the box and just that's following the flow, I think, of
Because especially as stand-up, this is really clever because the reason that I also, it's an excuse, but one of the reasons I don't want to like pursue stand-up is that I want to go to bed at 10. I don't want to go to bed at 12. And you figured out a way with your skill set to make it work. And also, you mentioned the comparing side. Stand-ups are all like, I'm doing 14 shows in a row. How many are you doing? Or we have massive comedy festivals where I am, and it's all about how can people get as many shows as possible. But if you figure out a number where you still feel like passionate and you can enjoy your life, quality over quantity, because this is a long-term game, both mentally and professionally. And no one talks about it like you've done it. I think that's so important that you can be successful doing it your way, which is one thing, but also to just manage your time a lot better instead of, being stuck in the game of stand up and all the other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I definitely wanted all that stuff. And I do a thing where, you know how people like one up each other? Like they go, hey, I'm doing this festival. And the other person goes, oh, I'm doing that festival and this one. I do a thing where I one down people to make them feel better about themselves. I constantly, like someone to go, oh, I did like that. They go, I did 90 minutes. I did an hour and a half the other night. I was like, wow, dude, I'm doing 40 minutes. Like I go the other way. I one down them and I talk about how my accomplishment is like slightly lower than theirs. And it's like a really fun thing where everyone stops competing and you just realize that, I don't know,
I think that's
all
great.
all those stand-up comedy goals, I feel like you're saying, doing all the shows. And I don't know, I don't have the, I don't have like the energy for it, man. Like I sort of like to do one really big show where I don't have to think, did I do that joke already? Like, no, I'm doing 3 shows a night. Like, did I repeat that? I like to do one big show for a big group of people. And then I like to do, and sometimes it's really long. Sometimes I'll do like a 90-minute show. I'll do like an hour. Maybe I'll do a Q&A. And then afterwards, I might do a 1-hour meet and greet. There's not been a show in the last 2 years where I haven't met every person in the crowd. And they'll start offering, once you start like selling out or whatever, they start offering you, they go, oh, you could do like $50, people get to meet you, or you could sell these packages. I go, no, like every show since I started this, I stand outside and I shake hands and take pictures with every person as just a thing that's part of you came, I'm going to say hi to you. Like that Boise theater, it's like 780 people. I think I met 500 of them for 1 hour. It was as long as the show.
Wow. You don't see that every day. What is that a gratitude thing that you just, you're proud of that people have come there and you want to give back, or what's the thinking?
I feel like I get asked it sometimes. Like if people are like, they go like, oh, could I get a picture after? And honestly, it's one of the most reward. I don't get like if I did have like the greatest set of my life and even get like a standing ovation, which is rare, but happened to me like once last weekend, I don't feel like, I don't come off stage and go, like I sort of go like, okay, that was good. Right. Like I go like, okay, we did good. I don't have like I don't get like a ton from it. I sort of go like, that was my job. It was supposed to go good. They bought their tickets, but I don't have like I killed like, but I do get a lot out of the meet and greet afterwards. Like I get a lot out of, I get people, because my fans are a little bit older. I've had 10 people in the last year say, I'm dying and this might be the last show I go to, or I'm really sick. And like you are, my wife's sick at home and we laugh at your thing. And like those things to me are like, I feel like I'm doing that for me, not them, like just somebody sort of making you feel like you did something good for once.
Well, it sounds like you've worked on your ego and you have, I don't know if it's still your favorite quote, but I think this used to be, or maybe it still is earn your dopamine. And I found that very interesting. Do you remember saying that?
Do you remember saying that?
Can you expand on it? That I've been thinking about that for a while.
Yeah, I think those are my only 2 things I ever invented: earn your dopamine and make a to-do list. But yeah, I feel like I've had some problems with like drinking in the past, and like the perfect example is like a cocaine that you like when you take Coke or something, you get all this dopamine and stuff, but you didn't do anything for it. You didn't earn it. And so now your dopamine level, your baseline dopamine is so high that regular life can't do it for you. Like so many like addicts have experienced that. Like I've experienced that back when I was like like trying to quit drinking and stuff. And just if now that I do basically no drugs, if yeah, there's ways to earn your dopamine. Like you can, you know, I know this is all over the internet and it's super annoying to hear about, but I do cold plunges. I don't talk about them. I don't post about them.
I love them. You're speaking. I just did one recently, but so go on.
Did
We
you?
love it here. Yeah.
It's like if you listen to Andrew Huberman, who's where I steal all my scientific advice from, is he says like a cold plunge is the most slow released dopamine you can possibly have. It's like the longest sustained. It lasts for hours. There's no cost to it. And I feel like the more I did those types of things, like if you sauna, workout, I like the cold plunge because I feel like you can tell people to work out. And I don't know, a lot of times I don't feel like working out. But cold plunge, you could talk yourself into, and it only takes a couple minutes. And man, if you're depressed or you feel like you're vibrating on the wrong level or you're in a bad mood and you don't know why, if you just make yourself get in a cold shower, there's nothing you can do. You can't ruminate when you're freezing cold in a shower. Like it is the
It's there
most.
in the moment.
I feel like it is like the less. I also used to feel like when I was drinking, I always used to feel like I was borrowing dopamine from tomorrow because I felt like I was going like I'm gonna have fun right now, and then the next day you're hungover, and then you're physiologically like that's the big thing with people that I was fascinated by this when I first learned it, like how you want to have like a drink every night or whatever, and people go, and I'm not anti-drinking, I'm just not good at it. If somebody drinks, I hope it's great for them, and I know a lot of people that are super fun to drink around. I don't only hang out with people that don't drink. I just personally don't. But I remember one time thinking like every time I have a beer, it like relaxes me. Every time I have a beer, I feel like, and a lot of times if you drink a beer every night or you have a drink or you do anything every single night, you're just relieving the symptoms of withdrawal from not having the beer the night before. So a lot of your relaxation, you've fucked up your baseline where if you just stopped, which I've stopped, now to relax, like I could have I'm the most boring person in the world, man, but I could have like a decaf tea and it does for me what I used to think a whiskey was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Once you sort of get it out of your system, you find substitutes for that stuff.
I also don't drink, and I see the similarities with sugar, and that's hard. But when I've cut sugar, and I'm a recovering sugar addict, but when you I don't know if you know anything about sugar because that has like a massive impact, and you just need to get past the first little hump, and then
Yes.
it's just wild. With deciding to be sober, that's not easy, and I know that you've done it twice. Can you speak to what you kind of learned and why you decided the second time to be on this brilliant health kick that you're on? Because you're super healthy. You do the saunas and the cold plunges. You obviously go to gym. I think you've said journaling. I think you've also meditated. Why decide to kind of, as lame as it sounds, be as healthy or the best person that you can be?
Yeah, I'll tell you this crazy story, man. This is kind of crazy. So I drank way too much and I needed to quit, and I had trouble quitting by myself. And then I sent a text message. I was like almost blacked out. I just knew I had to quit. I knew it like wasn't helping. I wasn't being productive. I wasn't like a crazy driving drunk and rock bottom, but I like knew. But I had trouble quitting on my own. I messaged Nikki Glazer, the comedian Nikki Glazer. She's my friend. And I go, I'd like to quit drinking. I heard her on a podcast and she was talking about being sober. And I was like, what? We were so drunk last time I saw her. And so I go, how did you quit drinking? And then I actually got embarrassed in the morning and I deleted my messages to her, which is insane. Like deleting your messages to someone doesn't make them disappear on their phone. So I don't even know what I was thinking. So the next day she goes, you got to read this book. It's called The Easy Way to Quit Drinking by Alan Carr, I believe the guy is. And she goes, it's crazy. I go, read a book. I order the book. It comes to my house. I read the book. I turn the last page. I quit drinking. I quit drinking for years. For years.
That's
and
crazy.
I'm like, I never went back. I never go to a meeting. I never go to, and it was really hot.
Oh, I read the book. That's it.
Last page, quit. And that's what she did too. So fast forward, every year I message her and say, you saved my life. Thank you for messaging me back. Right. Every year that I collect these years of sobriety,
Nice.
And so one time doing like this, I did this podcast that I did like 10 episodes. It was called I Quit. And I had Nikki Glazer on and we talked about the book and how she saved my life. And it was really fun and everything. And we mentioned the book. So anyway, so I get divorced and I'm dating girls and I start thinking to myself, I could probably have a glass of wine. It's been like 9 years. I didn't go through any kind of program, so I don't know if I knew that. I thought maybe that it would be different this time, and like I'm 10 years old or whatever. And I have a couple glass of wine with a girl one night, and it's fine. And then like a couple of days, I was just like nervous. I didn't know how to talk. I'd been married for 17 years. I didn't know how to date or whatever. So then the next night, I went out with a girl, and I had a couple boxes of wine. Like it quickly spiraled. Like it got out of control like very quickly, and I was like, I shouldn't have done that. And there might have been longer in there where I had a couple glasses of wine, maybe like 3 months. And I was like, shoot, I think I have to quit again. And it was really hard. It was really hard. I tried reading the book again, didn't work. I tried like talking to some friends and I just was having trouble, and I would quit for a week and then something would happen. It's a true story. This is going to sound crazy. So they released this audiobook of the book that I read called The Easy Way to Quit Drinking. And I go, oh, maybe the audiobook would be different. Maybe it'll like hit me different, you know? So I put it on play, and I'm sleeping, and I'm drunk, drinking still. And every chapter, they have a quote from someone talking about the method, right? And it's like, oh, I quit drinking from this easy way, whatever. Richard Branson, the guy that started Virgin Airlines. Then it says, I quit drinking. It was super easy. Ed Norton, the actor, just like huge celebrities, right? All saying how much it helped them and everything. And I'm listening to it, and I'm not feeling anything. I'm not feeling like it's going to work. And then chapter 12, I'm falling asleep, and it says, it was the easiest thing I ever did, and it made me the best version of myself. And it said, comedian Jamie Lissow. And I was like, what? There was a quote from me in the book. And I was like, am I losing my mind? Like, I didn't give them a quote for the book. Like, what are they? And so the next day, I email them and I go, I'm losing my mind. And I'm like, why am I in there? I'm not famous. I go, what is going on? And they said they heard the podcast with Nikki Glazer, and they pulled that clip and they put it in the book. And it was like I was having an out of body experience. And so the people at that place, they go, we want to help you. We want to like help you. And so they ended up doing like a 1 day one-on-one kind of thing with me the very next day.
Wow.
And it's just they talk to you about why you're drinking and cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's all very like, it's nothing magic. It's like you say why you want to drink, and they tell you say, I drink because I'm nervous. They explain to you why it doesn't really help. And then you just quit. And so I quit again, and it was pretty easy, but that was like a wild.
That is crazy. Do you think that's saying your name? You're like, shit, I have to get this dealt with a lot quicker as well. Yeah.
Well, to tell you the truth, I called them to say, get my name off there because I'm still drinking. What if someone hears that and they see me at a bar? I had called to go, I wasn't even calling to say, please help me. I was calling to say, take my quote off your website. Like I'm drinking right now. So don't put me on there. And then they turned it around and said, like, we'll call you. It was so bizarre.
This is kind of going off topic, but it's kind of interesting how, as lame as it could sound, the universe kind of works for you in the sense of like you went there just you're like, I'm worried, and then they helped you out, and you've helped plenty of people. I'm just going to quickly quickly say a few things before we wrap up. But I know that there's like a famous example of, or in my head, I think an Uber driver told you that he was riding and you worked on his script to help him, and you've done it heaps of times, and it's led to other opportunities for you. And hearing that story about them helping you and then what you've done for others is kind of, it makes me like believe in karma even more, because you have these experiences where, it's just wild. I know I'm just rambling, and actually this springs to mind. It is kind of on the topic. You mentioned Rob Schneider a few times, and I feel like he's been very crucial for your career. And you're on a radio. We have to talk about this another time, but you're on a radio. You're a sidekick on a radio show, right?
I was the sidekick on a radio show. Yeah.
And long story short, I think Rob Schneider invited you to open for him or do one of his shows, and you did it. He enjoyed it, and then he asked you to kind of like wait for him. And while you were waiting for him, you decided to, I think, was like improve his jokes or something, and then that led to
I sat there and I wrote a bunch of jokes watching him,
and then that kind of led to great opportunities for you. Because first of all, actually, let's backtrack. Why did you decide to? I've never heard of anyone help someone with jokes, especially when they're an established comedian. Is that a thing? I've never heard about that before.
I don't know where this came from. I feel like I might have stolen it from like a self-help book or something, where someone talked about like adding value and trying to like do something for someone and get yourself to where you want nothing in return. Do it so much that like nothing feels transactional. And I remember that was a big one for me, was writing the jokes for Rob. There was no part of me that thought, oh, he'll hire me to run. I just thought, I knew he was getting, I wouldn't have done it if he had been doing stand up for a while. It was his first stand up show back after taking a break for a really long time.
Yep.
And so I thought he might want jokes like I do for my friends. We write jokes. So that's why I did that one. But like, I remember when we were shooting Real Rob, I was talking to the guy that owned the house we rented. He just owned the house that we were renting. And he said, oh, I got this script. And I go, hey, I'm doing this thing where if anyone tells me they wrote a script, I'll punch it up. You want me to punch up your script? And he was like, are you serious? I go, you send it to me. I punch it up. I send it back. If you don't want to use anything, you don't have to. And he was like,
wow.
And so I went home and he sent me the script and I punched it up. And I found out like months later that he's the guy that created the Blair Witch Project. Like, I wasn't trying to network. It was the guy that we just happened to rent the house from the guy that if you go to IMDb, he created the Blair Witch Project. And I ended up making 2 movies for that guy. And it was just like, I thought he just owned a house. There was a lot of movie paraphernalia. I had a weird feeling he might have had a little bit of success, but it was more just like, yeah, send it to me. I'll spend a couple hours. And yeah, me and that guy are still friends.
And I love hearing stories like that and non-transactional, because especially I, at a much lower level, have done that for friends and other people with no expectations. But then there's always like a part of me. So I'm like, shit, am I doing this because I think there's going to be something in return?
Right.
And that's never been the core reason. I love doing it because it makes me a better writer. And I'm very keen to get all 7 of my screenplays out there. And I feel like that makes me a better writer. But just that mindset of wanting to help someone, I love that. Like, that's very rare. I hope you know that. And I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you the truth though, you do have that part of your mind that tries to go, hey, if you do this, you'll get this back. Like it's like a muscle but I think that if you do it so much, you're not asking for it. And I also think that people look over, like people always think, okay, I'm opening for like a famous person. I will help the famous person with their script or whatever. And I think we overlook helping our friends, like lateral networking and helping is so important. Like I even have friends who are so let's say I have like 5 really good friends, right? That are comics or whatever. And so now I'm in a position where I got to bring some guys to theaters, right? To open for me. And these are friends that are just my friends and all of them would do a great job. I wish I could have all of them come with me, but I can only pick one. Well, I've been not doing much where someone would feel like, oh, if I help Jamie, I can get something, right? I've just been like this guy but there are friends of mine who, when I was going through my tough times or good times, were like really there for me in the sense of like, hey, I'm going to help you write that script. I know you're working on that pilot. Send it to me. I'll punch it up. And when I think about those guys, that's who I want to bring to the theater shows. And they weren't trying to get anything, but I want to bring them because I want to write a script and I know they're going to write it with me at the theater. Or I know like they're really into business and they're going to like sell my merch for me and we'll make a deal where they get some money from each thing they sell or they sell their own thing. Like I start to gravitate towards those people that did that to me without wanting anything back, but it helped. But now like it's hard for me. It's very competitive. Like it's hard for me not to pick those guys that I know if I bring him on the road, he's going to go like, hey, let's go to a coffee shop tomorrow and like write this thing. I want that guy. I don't necessarily want the guy that wants to go drinking all night or go to the zoo tomorrow or see whatever game. Like I think I want to bring in the guy that did to me what I did to other people, which is just like kind of help out.
I love that. I think that's very important. And I'm not in a position of power to do anything, but I remember everyone that's helped me. I don't think about anyone that hasn't helped me. I'm very conscious. Everyone who's done this podcast, I'm not even joking, every day I'm so grateful for. It is so kind that you would spend this time with me. It is the best. And then I've been very lucky that some people have read my scripts over time, and I'm just so grateful. And at the back of my mind, if I'm writing something, and once again, I'm not in a position of power to do anything, I'm like, oh, you know what? I would get them to audition, or they would be great for the show. I know it doesn't work like that, but I'm just so grateful when someone does something for me. And I just think it's great. It makes me like excited and empowered. I just think it's the the greatest feeling. So I'm glad that you've kind of put that into words for me as well.
Heck yeah, man. And you're great at this. It was this flew by, so it was nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Before we go, we'll do a very quick rapid fire segment. So the first thing that springs to mind, and if you need time to think about it, please do. So, okay. Rapid fire question number one. What did you learn about from being sober the second time when you had that one-on-one call?
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing was it is so much easier the first time. It's so much easier to just not start drinking the second time. If anybody in the whole world, one person could hear that and not start, just because it was easy to quit the first time does not mean it's going to be easier the second time. And I think, and then besides that, it was just like a reminder that it was everything you think it's doing for you, it is not doing. Drinking whatever you think it's doing for you, making food taste better, making you have a better time, making you funnier, relaxing you, reducing your stress, helping you with your money problems or your women problems. It's not doing any of those things. It's categorically not helping you with any of those. And like, that's what that second call was, a breakdown of rationally, like, kind of teaching your mind that it's not doing what you think it's doing.
I'm not going to comment on them, but that was brilliant. What did you learn about being on radio?
Oh, it's just so great. I feel like every single thing that we do, radio is tough for me. I honestly didn't love being on the show I was on. It was a little bit difficult and it was a tough time in my life, but it's so crazy how everything comes full circle. I would have said, like, if you said what was great about being on that show, I would have said I got to spend time with my kid because I was in one place for 5 years, and I would have said it stops there. But I just started a project that I could not be more excited about than any other project. I've never said this on anything, so if you search for it, you won't find anything. But my girlfriend is a doctor, and she's really funny, and she has like a TikTok channel, and she does it really well. And we just teamed up to do a podcast called Afraid to Ask, where it's like me and my doctor girlfriend, and it's way too hot for me, answering questions from people. And because of radio, it's so crazy what skills you learn on the radio. Like, just doing a podcast is, you can't just, this, I'm sure, you can't just turn on the mics. You have to know what you're doing. And like, every skill from radio, I'm like, oh my God, like that's why I spent 5 years doing that, because I can do this podcast and I know how to do it all. I know how to tease stuff. And I know when people are tuning out, because we used to have a people meter. It was like ratings. It would tell you when people would stop. And after 2 years, you go, I know when people stop listening. It's when I start talking and I'm not relatable anymore.
I love that. What's it called? And is it out? If not, can you send me the episode title, and I'll put it in the episode notes. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's not even out yet, but it's called Afraid to Ask. But we're 15 episodes deep. We're just trying to.
Holy moly.
We've spent a lot of time. We spent months on it, and it's all, we recorded it in a studio, and we were kind of shopping it around a little bit. But I'm going to release it January, like end of January, like no matter what happens. I don't know if it's going to be on someone's network or we'll do it ourselves. But I couldn't be more excited about anything, and I get to spend time with my girlfriend, and we're not that annoying on the air. Like, we're not annoying.
No, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go. I love that.
You hang up.
Yeah, you. Last Animal 2, I saw that you're a writer on that. How is that going? It was a pretty big movie of its time.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a ton of information, but it's completely written. I'm a writer and producer. Rob Schneider's a writer and producer. I have a role in the movie. We got John Cleese locked in. Like, this thing was ready to go. We had shoot dates, and the SAG strike messed us up, and so it never started. And we were ready to go. We had everything set, and so we're waiting for a new shooting schedule. But script is ready. We're ready. I would say probably like a few months.
I know that Monty is, but were you ever involved in the Great Emu War or whatever it's called?
Not really. I went to John Cleese's house once and helped him punch up the script with Monty, but I don't even think I wrote one joke. I think I was too nervous.
Last few. Oh yeah, I was just going to, coming full circle, we talked about that experience of you being sober and how, things haven't worked out for you in one way and it's led to another way. If you had a philosophy on life, what would it be?
That's a good one, man. I think it kind of goes back to my I feel like my whole philosophy is you have to get to a point where you realize how lucky we are in this moment today and all the things we have to be grateful for and how we lack nothing. And I think that's how you can get anything you want. Only when you truly believe that. Only when you truly believe you lack nothing is everything available to you. I believe it with my heart and soul and every cell in my body that that's true.
Brilliant. Has living in Alaska made you a better comedian?
I think so. I hate it here and I'm frustrated right now, but because it's so far away. But I love my children, and I do think it gave me. I am very thankful for it because it gave me an angle that not. It gave me a point of view that not a lot of other people had, and it gave me this way for people to remember me. And it gave me like even being angry about living here or upset about getting divorced or any of that stuff. It gave me all these jokes and gave me a point of view. And so yeah, definitely. I think when I lived in New York and LA. I had jokes about the subway like everyone else and jokes about airplanes like everyone else. And so I think it did give me a bit of a unique perspective.
I love your mindset. I also feel like it would make you a better comedian because there's probably not as many comedy clubs. So the people that do see comedy, you're forced to try new material.
Totally true. When I go to like the guy that picked me up in my Uber was at my show the last time I was here. Like it is a small town. And so yeah, every time you go somewhere you oh yeah, you got to have a new hour to perform in to go up at a club again at Fairbanks, Alaska. We do not have comedy clubs. You do like I think last time I was here, I did like an ale house. I may have done a dollar store. You just do whatever they put together, some run of wacky places.
Last two questions. Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Yeah, I was trying to think who I'm going to steal this from, but oh dude, my something that I was so terrible at that I recently got good at was sometimes comedians like we'll go to the store and we'll buy like a new notebook. Buy like you go to Barnes and Noble, you buy like a leather notebook with like a pen, and you should have just written jokes on the hotel's tablet. Like my advice would be stop trying to buy the perfect notebook to write your jokes and just start writing. You have to like even this podcast I was working on. I had so many people that were like, "You got to make sure you have 3 cameras," and I was like, "Oh man!" Like it was like you have to spend all this money. You gotta. And with that thing, I said, "We're starting today, and I'll get the cameras when I get the cameras." But like, we're recording right now. Like we're doing it right now. I think it would be to just stop making sure it's perfect. You'll use everything that you do. Some of it you'll cut, some of it you'll redo. But I would say whatever you want to do, just start now without. I remember when I did my first Instagram post, we all probably remember like you're really nervous and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, do I look okay? And then your 100th one, you're like you're okay at it. So I think it would be to just act, not plan to act and wait for the perfect time.
That hits me on many levels. Before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you, what is the one question I should have asked you?
Oh, one question you should have asked me. Dude, I don't know if there is one you did so good.
Stop it.
I'm really trying to rack my brain. I don't know, because I would say my favorite things you asked me are like about helping other people with stuff without wanting anything in return and like I think like maybe if we talked about like more of a I think a morning routine is like super important and like every morning I do like a cold plunge, I do a sauna. I'm not like a rich guy, I got a blow up sauna, like I got everything. And I do like some type of exercise, and I think one thing that is really important is to just don't eat. I don't do that stuff just when I feel shitty. I do it when I feel good, and I'm sure that it's like you should still go to therapy when everything's okay.
Agreed.
Like I think working on yourself when you feel like you don't have to work on yourself avoid some of like the mood valleys for me and things like that.
I agree. I meditate every day. I've only missed maybe like 5 days in the last like 7 years. And
Oh damn.
I do it no matter how bad I'm feeling. On the odd occasion, if I'm like bedridden, I do it no matter what. And so I always feel like my baseline is so strong. Doesn't mean I don't have bad days, but it's
Right.
my baseline has moved so much higher than where it would have been without it. And I think what you've just done is very impactful as well. So before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
So basically on my website, jamielissow.com, or you can also get there by going to robschneidersfriend.com or greggutfeldsfriend.com. And
Oh, really? Greg Gutfeld
yeah,
as well? Because I typed in Rob Schneider's friend and
yeah,
it actually goes to your name. That's hilarious.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm big on Instagram. I'm on like Facebook and Twitter, but I am Jamie Lissow on Instagram, but all my other stuff is just reposting what I put on Instagram.
I'll upload all of them in the episode notes below. Thank you so much. Your mindset and giving back to others, like philosophy or way of life, is contagious. It's brilliant. I appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Thank you, man. Good chatting with you.
We can often project into the future and contemplate what tomorrow may bring for us. Jamie has a beautiful mindset while he's conscious of growing himself not only as a performer and a creative, as well as a person. He is mindful of not letting those thoughts and feelings consume him and affect him from enjoying from what's happening in the moment. It is easy to focus on the next thing. However, Jamie cleverly realizes that in this current moment, this is the only place he needs to be. A mindset that allows him to be present and enjoy what's in front of him. I also love his quote, "Stop trying to buy the perfect notebook to write your jokes and just start writing." Often in life, we can be consumed with doing things perfectly to avoid mistakes, criticism, and judgment. Jamie gently acknowledges that mistakes will happen regardless if it's perfect or not. Part of the messiness, so to speak, is what is enjoyable and helps us improve and learn along the way. The mistakes, issues, and challenges overall will be worth it. Jamie's advice is to do what you love, remain focused, and the rest will unfold. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. "The moment is not found by seeking it, but by ceasing to escape from it." James Pearce. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.